So I have a question about your research process. Is it mostly your team feeding inputs to the investment arm, or or is it a back and forth where the investment arm sees this trend and then they ask you to go and do some due diligence, figure out what the opportunities and so on? How does that work?
So I think it for us it's fairly collaborative. So again, because my role keeps blending in with the investment side of things, it's quite often that we keep discussing trends for months before we make an investment decision around that area. So again, going back to DeFi, right? Like we were looking at it for about 6-8 months before we made a formal investment in that space. So it's always internal collaborations and discussions. And then also you also want to time the market to a certain degree, because if you invest in a seed stage firm and the market takes 2.5 years to really understand what the theme is, it's very likely that they won't be able to catch on a follow-on round. So it's a little bit of timing it, but it's constant back and forth, and it's also research that feeds into an investment decision versus the other way around. Except more recently, now that we have our accelerator, we see a very diverse theme when it comes to like startups, right? Like so, at Basecamp, we invest around $30,000 to $50,000 in teams with barely just a business plan. So we see things that are what you could call outright exotic, right? Like nobody is discussing about this on Twitter. So their research needs to feed into that investment process, but more or less, it's usually on the other side.
I would say in a way that investment there is actually research dollars. Let this team figure out what the biggest problems are and what the pain points
Yes.
are, right? In a way, it's an extension